is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to This Is Metal. And tonight, once again, my co-host, as always, is Joe Lawson, the frontman for Dragon Horror and Scream Kings. How you doing tonight, Joe?
Doing good.
That's great. And have you been keeping busy with creating your own new music as we speak?
Well, yeah. Been working a lot, and we've got a lot of demos and stuff for the new Dragon Lore record, and Scream King rehearsals right around the corner are going to be firing up. So a lot going on behind the scenes for sure.
Always glad to hear that. Now, like we were telling the listeners last week, we were going to be talking about all things Dee Snider tonight, and I'm sure, Joe, very much like myself, you probably first became aware of Dee Snider because of Twisted Sister, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was my introduction to Dee Snider and the band. You know, was all the stuff "We're Gonna Burn in Hell" and "We're Not Gonna Take It," and all those classic heavy metal anthems of the '80s. You know.
Oh yeah, I mean it's amazing because back then, we're especially 1984 when that "Stay Hungry" came out. That's where kind of Twisted Sister broke out. They were all over MTV. People started to know where they were, who they really were. I mean, that's when everybody started to become a Twisted Sister fan. But anybody that's a diehard fan, they know that Twisted Sister. They start back in like 1978. They were part of the New York club scene. But that's when everybody kind of started to know. Okay, this band Twisted Sister was when that "Stay Hungry" album came out. And
right.
And let me ask you, when you first saw that video, I guess, for either "We're Not Gonna Take It" or "I Wanna Rock," what was your image of Dee Snider when you saw him for the very first time? I mean, how much did his look have to do with you becoming a fan?
Oh yeah, I mean it pulled you in right away. I mean the whole band had the theatrics and had this crazy Mad Max kind of type of look, and they had the makeup and the whole thing going on back then in the '80s. So I mean they played the part really well, and it was captivating. And they kind of demanded your attention, and I mean the music was good too. I mean they had some great songs and some great tracks. He's a good singer and a good songwriter. I mean he really sings from the heart. I really respect that about him, and he's really passionate. So I think he's a great singer, and I really was blown away by his comeback album, "For the Love of Metal." I know I'm kind of fast forward.
No, that's great.
Through his entire career here, but if you haven't heard it or haven't been introduced to it, you definitely want to get your hands on this. Check it out. It's just track after track of just ass-kicking good songs. I was really blown away. I like Twisted Sister. I like Dee Snider, but when I heard this record, he upped his level to a whole new game going on there.
I totally agree with you.
It was really impressive.
And I think what's really impressive is, Dee Snider, as you said, he's in my mind a very much a gifted songwriter. I mean, especially if you consider he was a guy that wrote most of those Twisted Sister songs. He was the principal songwriter, and Dee Snider very much became Twisted Sister. And what's interesting with his comeback album, "For the Love of Metal," that is a great album just from start to finish. What's sad is that's the solo album I think he should have released years ago, because with his solo career, I liked a lot of the stuff, but he's been all over the place. Like each album kind of has a different sound, whereas this album has a full-blown on metal sound from start to finish. And I think
it does. It's great songwriting, great production. I mean, it's just the whole album is just a full package. I mean, he really pulled out all the stops, and you can see the maturity in his writing, and it's really come full circle. It's a really great album. I can't stress it enough. Dee Snider, "For the Love of Metal." Go get it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Joe, the interesting thing is that you must not be aware of is as great as the album is, how he initially got the idea to put the album out is there was this singer from the band Hatebreed, Jamie Josta, and I guess Dee went on his radio show and he was saying, man, Dee, I challenge you to do like a full-blown metal album. Like, you need to put out just another great album. And the sad thing is, part of the reason that the album is so great is this guy Jamie Josta from the band Hatebreed. Dee wanted him to help him write the stuff, the material, and he was the executive producer on the album. And from what I understand, Dee told this guy, Jamie Johnson, Jamie, just you write the stuff for me, you write the songs, and I'm going to go in there and perform your songs. And that's kind of, so they did it kind of as a team, but none of the songs were actually written by Dee, which is interestingly enough. And I heard Dee talking about this in an interview saying, I wrote all those great Twisted Sister songs, but after I did the Widowmaker albums, I kind of lost my confidence as a songwriter. I just kind of came to the conclusion that the stuff I was writing at the time wasn't up to snuff. And he's like, I'm not interested in like writing songs anymore, but Jamie did a great job, so I'm going to continue to work with him.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people don't realize it, but there's a lot of bands, a lot of artists that they're talented musicians or they're talented singers, but songwriting really honestly is a separate talent of its own. And sometimes the well runs dry, I mean, it's just a matter of time, and that's a smart move. That was a smart career decision by him, to enlist someone else that maybe had a great vision and path that they knew would work for him, and I'm blown away by it. I think it worked like a motherfucker. Yeah,
and see, like you said, Dee is such a talented overall performer. It amazes me it took him this long to find a guy that could do that for him, because I don't know how important it is to find the right producer or whatever, or a guy like that to work with.
But huge, the right producer knows how to get your best performance and knows how to get everything out of you that maybe you don't necessarily think you even got in you. So I mean, it's huge. The pleasure of working with a producer that really has your best interest at heart and really knows the right way to push the band or to push the direction of the music and pull your best performances and stuff out. I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. And there's a lot of bands, a lot of albums that today would not be what they are without those producers. I mean, people don't realize that, but that's the honest truth.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this album, For the Love of Metal, is, I mean, even the critics loved it. It was critically acclaimed. I mean, it got pretty good reviews, and fans equally loved it. And see, I think Dee for a long time...
It put Dee on the map all over again, really. It did.
Yeah, and Dee for a long time has kind of had an identity crisis in the sense of, like I said, in all the previous solo albums, like he did this album like a Broadway tunes, and Dee Snider fans kind of went for it. They checked it out, but I think this is the strongest solo album he's ever really put out, and even getting back to the Stay Hungry album in '84. Interestingly enough, of his famous rock photographer Mark Weiss, he did that. He did that famous cover of Dee that ended up being an album cover, but it was originally supposed to be a band photo. But then somehow they took a photo of Dee and they just said, that's the look. That's the look. And Dee ended up on the cover, like just a solo shot, and the band was not even featured on the front cover. And I understand that created quite a bit of problems between Dee and the other guy. But see, Dee kind of got to the point where he almost became a cartoon character back then. I mean, people thought he was a clown. He looked like a clown. So, even Dee said back in the day he used to look like, in his own mind, like a drag queen. But people almost thought, Dee Snider was Twisted Sister, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
He got maybe kind of pigeonholed or fell into that trap a little bit, so to speak. But fast forward after that, I don't know how many people know, but in 1990 he formed a project called Desperado, which featured Clive Burr from Iron Maiden, Bernie Tormey from Gillian and Ozzy, and Mark Russell. I mean, that was a band that could have done huge things. They had an 11-track album that was never released. It wasn't long after that got pushed to the wayside or fell apart, what have you. And then he formed Widowmaker in '91. And Widowmaker had some really strong, promising tracks too. And he had Al Petrelli, formerly with Alice Cooper, and Joey Franco, who played on Twisted Sister's last album. So that was a great album. A couple albums actually, I think that they did with Widowmaker, and that was that's what originally brought my attention back to Dee Snider. When I heard a couple of those tracks, I was like, oh wow, cool, this is pretty cool, you know.
Yeah, Widowmaker. He was, to me, trying to get a little more away from the Twisted Sister image and sound, and trying to go for a little harder edge. And you mentioned Al Pitrelli, who would also years later would go on to do one album with Megadeth, which I believe was the World Needs a Hero album, and he's also done stuff with TSO now, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So
he's kind of all over the map, man. I mean, he's had a really good career, really up and down, but he's really pushed the limits on every boundary that he can go for. He just went for it. That's what I love about him too. I mean, he just he said, "You say I can't do this? Watch me." You know what I mean?
And Dee Snider,
he's a really cool person too, man.
And Dee Snider, what I love about him is, like you said, he's had a couple of pretty good comebacks. I mean, like after the Widowmaker band folded up, I mean, I heard him talk in interviews about he literally lost it all, and he had to fight his way back to, he's doing, I guess, pretty set for the rest of his life, but he had to get back, and earn everything back that he had lost. He lost it all, really.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of bands and musicians from then, they put it all on the line.
Yeah.
And people think because they were big during the '80s and all this stuff. A lot of those people didn't understand the contracts that they got into, and and they ended up owing record labels insane amounts of money. And it just. It was just a nightmare for a lot of musicians and a lot of artists that you wouldn't think you'd think, oh, they're this guy or that band, they're rich, they're set. It's usually not the truth. They usually owe so much money it's not even funny.
And in Dee Snider's case, I understand back when Twisted Sister originally folded in '87, even after Widowmaker folded and everything, and he was really pretty much done, or so he thought at the time. He didn't own the rights to any of his songs. I mean, I guess the record companies did. I mean, he didn't even get the rights to that stuff until they had the Twisted Sister reunion, and he found a way to get the rights to all this. And I understand he recently sold his catalog of music to like some big company. And I guess he made a pretty good deal on that, where he gets a certain percentage for the rest of his life, but I mean, he had to even fight to get the rights to his own music, which is amazing.
Yeah, another topic, Dee Snider related, that we've brushed on in the past with our discussion with Wasp, was a 1985 Senate hearing.
Oh yeah,
was instigated by Parents Music Resource Center, the old PMRC name after Dee.
Yeah, and that's interesting because back then Dee Snider was he was the anti-establishment. He was the spokesperson for that generation, and he's like, that was what I Want to Rock is all about. We're not going to take it. I mean, he was the spokesperson for. He was a heavy metal hero at the time, and that was a big deal. And what was funny is, you can go online and you can look up these Senate hearings that he was a part of, and I think the three main speakers for that, oddly enough, and they were all equally outspoken, was Dee Snider, Frank Zappa, and John Denver. Two of them are no longer with us, but they were equally just as angry as Dee, which is very interesting because when you think of John Denver, you don't think of him as an angry guy.
No. Yeah, every time I hear the name John Denver, I hear in my head, plant a tree.
Yeah, or Rocky Mountain Way. But the thing that trips me out about John Denver, is they were. I heard on this thing they were doing after he passed away. They were talking about the fact that his very first number one single was "Leaving on a Jet Plane," and sadly enough, that's how he left this world on a one-engine little jet plane.
Yeah, right.
Just talk about irony.
There's some kind of sick irony there for you on that.
Yeah. Dee Snider. What I've also, he's, like I said, he's been all over the place. I mean, he's not just a music star, but he got into acting, doing horror movies, directing them. He's done a little bit of everything. He was on reality TV. He had like the Hair of Metal, which was a radio show that he kind of did, and he was one of the first guys to do anything like that. Of these musical stars.
Right. And then in 1998, he talking about writing songs.
Yeah.
He's been on the other side of the coin also.
Producing,
he wrote a song called "The Magic of Christmas Day."
Oh yeah.
Which Celine Dion ended up recording on her album. These Are Special Times.
Oh, I forgot about that. Just think about it. That's something you could envision: Celine Dion and Twisted Sister.
Right. So he was writing songs for other people too.
Yeah.
You know?
And see, that's what kind of amazes me about. I would love somebody, give him another. Hey, Dee, come on. Why don't you try to write, go back writing your own stuff, or at least a couple songs, just to see if you still got it. But because I think I'd be willing to bet he could do it if he just give it a shot.
Right. Also, going back to his horror film career, he did the movie Strangeland.
Yeah.
He did a follow-up to that called Strangeland Disciple, but it was never released.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So,
and Strangeland,
it'd be cool to see. Get a peek at that and see kind of where that took you.
Yeah, and Strangeland, I believe, was based on the Captain Howdy character from Stay Hungry.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting, and getting back to the after they had that big success with Stay Hungry, the next album was Come Out and Play, which that was kind of when Twisted Sister kind of started to kind of fall apart. First, there's just between those two albums, and they were not as popular. But I'll tell you, the song on Come Out and Play that I really love, which was a follow-up to Stay Hungry, is called "Be Cruel to Your School." And I don't know if you ever seen the video for that.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Alice Cooper and Twisted Sister. And the interesting thing about that video is apparently it's quite obvious that Dee Snider is a huge Alice Cooper fan, and he's gone on record saying that for several years. And at the time, Alice Cooper was kind of just getting ready to come back, and he hadn't toured like in 3 or 4 years because Alice's, I guess, alcoholism has kind of would really taken control of his life, and he hadn't done any touring for about 3 or 4 years. And Dee's like, this would be a great chance to have, do a duet with Alice, have him sing on our album, do a video with him, and it really helped put Alice back on the map.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's been all over helping different people, writing songs for different people, and like I said again, just an outstanding guy that just went for it in every aspect of in every way that he could. So he's like I said, he's a great role model, great person to look up to as far as the glory of the 80s and the hairband metal and all of that. I mean, and he survived all of that, and he's still going. I mean, that's you got to respect that. One of the greatest comeback stories, and also on that Come Out and Play album, they had other special guests like I forget what song it was, but like I remember Billy Joel played the piano on one of his songs, and they did stuff like that that was just kind of different, and then after that, I think '87 was the last album for a while, which was Love Is for Suckers, and oddly enough, that was originally going to be released as from what I understand a Dee Snider solo album, but at the last minute they decided, no, we'll make it a Twisted Sister album, and I guess the album sold so bad that they didn't even end up having a tour for it. Right. Yeah, and just another off the beaten path Dee Snider fact, he did a voiceover for Angry Jack in the episode Shell Shocked on Nickelodeon for SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh, wow.
So, wow. I mean, as crazy as that is, I mean, that's just goes to show, like I said, he's really been literally all over. He's done everything.
Yeah. Well, another producer that he had worked with on that Broadway album was Bob Killick, which is a guitar player who recently passed away. He's a brother of Kiss guitar player Bruce Killick, and he'd been on many of those great Kiss albums. He did like ghost guitar stuff for them, and he was part of Meatloaf and Wasp, and oddly enough, that Bob Killick was more known as like a session player, and he played on he did albums with everybody from Kiss and Diana Ross and Lou Reed. He was one of those guys, but he really made a name for himself. And Bob Killick also he wrote this. He also wrote a song for SpongeBob Square Pants, and he just made a ton of money just off that one song. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, when they do stuff like that. So it just, getting back to Love Is for Suckers, that's not my kind of, I have to say, I actually thought it was a pretty decent album. I think it just, one of those things came out at the wrong time, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, I honestly think that every Twisted Sister record that came out, there was at least a couple of tracks that I thought were good, strong, promising tracks.
Yeah.
I didn't love every song
No.
that they ever put out, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But there was enough there that I stayed interested and kept up with what he was doing, you know what I mean? And
oh, yeah.
I was curious all the time, like I said, and I was really optimistic when I heard the Widowmaker stuff because I thought, oh, this is cool, I was like, I kind of like this even better than Twisted Sister,
Yeah, what's interesting to me,
and then he really drove that to a whole new level with For the Love of Metal, obviously.
Yeah, and what's interesting with me about Dee Snider, when you look at the overall Twisted Sister era of his career, I gotta say he really is. He is Twisted Sister in the sense that, I remember reading when he left the band in '87, the rest of the guys were saying, "No, we'll just get we're just going to get another guy to, fill in for Dee, or we'll get a new singer." But I think it came to a point where they realized, no, fans are not going to accept anybody but Dee Snider, in Twisted Sister. Because if that was really the case, they could have gotten another singer. But I think they were smart enough to not even. Try. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that was a smart move on their part because when they did decide to get back together, I think it was like 2010 or something like that. They had that big New York Steel show, and they were raising money. And I understand the bass player at the time, he really hated Dee Snider, Mark Mendoza. They got back together to do like this benefit show, and he's like, he actually showed up with a gun or something. He's like, I was ready to let my fury off on this guy, but they actually had this in the behind the music where Mark Mendoza was talking about this. He said, I really hated Dee Snider. I blamed him for the breakup of Twisted Sister, and I really hated the guy. But eventually, they made up, and the band came back even stronger than ever. And actually, I don't know if you're aware of this, Joe, but actually, I think. For one album they sold more copies of now, even more than Stay Hungry, is that Christmas album Twisted Sister did about 10 or 11 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be a trend, though. I kind of got mixed feelings about that. Whatever. A lot of bands do it, and I get it. It's a business. And. Halford's done the same thing. A number of bands have put out Christmas records.
It's just funny because to
me it just gets mundane, and it's like, okay, it's a money grab. I hate to say it, but I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna come right out and say it. Okay.
Well, there you go.
It's a money grab. It is. It's a money grab.
See, that's again one of those things that's really ironic to me because, I know when I think of Twisted Sister, I really think of that Stay Hungry era. That's the era where I really became a fan, where I first took notice of the band. That's the time.
that was the great times and great music, and they were hungry then, and they had something to offer, and it was awesome listening to those albums. Even today, you can hear it in the records.
Yeah, and I think too, that's maybe when they were at the purest because like you said, they were real hungry back there. Where everything that came after, I'm not saying I didn't like any of it, but in retrospect, it's almost like they were trying to stick with the Twisted Sister look or image. Rather than trying to progress, they were trying to stay in that mold. But like a lot of bands, you have that one album when you break out, and you want to constantly be repeating that. But unless you got the greatest luck in the world, you can't really, you can't fake it. Like you said, you got to be really authentic, and you have a better chance of being successful if you're writing from the heart and you're not just trying to keep doing what made you successful. Just trying to look for that magic formula. I think if you're trying to be like really authentic, then you'll find success, or fans will follow you. Right.
Another thing worth mentioning, I think. just to give an example of his character, he starred in a commercial featuring a mock audition where he came on as himself after drinking a soda. He turns into the lead singer of Twisted Sister. Oh, wow. And he agreed to come on and do that with some of his friends because he wanted to support St. Jude Medical Center. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Things like that, he doesn't have to do that,
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, and then, he was also very, although you may be surprised to look at the guy the way he used to look, but he very used to be and still has always been anti-drug. He always put that message. In fact, I think 1984, 85, when it was real big and back in the day, they had Rockers Against Drugs. He did one of those commercials, and he was all over the place talking about, don't let me catch you doing drugs. He was always putting that out there, So he's always been a great role model. And actually, from what I understand, if you ever watched his reality show, it's part of his rocker image and everything. He's very much always been a family man. Like, he has 3 or 4 kids, and he's loves his wife. They've never had any trouble. They've never separated or anything. But so he's got real strong family values.
Yeah, absolutely. Great person. I mean, it seems like he is. Let me put it that way. Yeah. I didn't grow up next door.
No, but just what they put out there, at least. And like I said, what's interesting about Dee Snider these days, back then he was very much the anti-establishment. And I bring that up because he was even, a number of years ago, he was for a season, I remember, on Donald Trump's Apprentice show. And
the Celebrity Apprentice.
And what's funny about that is, I guess he remains friends with Donald Trump, but he's not a real big fan of his politics, and even Donald Trump was using, like, "We're Not Gonna Take It," like, for his theme song for a while at a lot of his political rallies.
Ryan was,
and he was like, Donald, you and me are friends and everything. You're cool with me, but he's kind of telling him, I'm not really into your politics, so I'd really appreciate if you don't play my songs at your rallies, because it looks like I support your politics, and I really don't, buddy. So I'd really appreciate that. It just kind of, that's what that song is all about. We're not going to take it, kind of standing against the establishment. And I kind of laugh and think, I could understand maybe not wanting your music played at a certain political event, but hey, that's what that song is about, man. It's giving the middle finger to the.
Everybody has their own stance on that and their own opinion on that. That was his, So. Yeah. But the Widowmaker record, just to let people know, it's called "Never Let the Bastards Wear You Down." Yeah. And it was released in 2000. That's another one you got to check out.
I think you can get that if you go on Amazon. They actually had 2 albums, like another one I think was called "Stand Up for Pain" or something like that. But
"Stand By for Pain," yeah.
Yeah, but the first one, like you said, that's the one I really thought it had a lot of promise, and it's too bad that band didn't last more than 2 albums.
Yeah, some good stuff, man. The guys had a great career, and the last record especially, like I said,
for the love of metal,
it made me fall in love with Dee Snider all over again. I was just like, oh man, this is so fucking cool,
And that's why what's currently going on with this COVID-19 stuff, that's what really sucks about it, because we don't know when we're going to get any live concerts for a while. I mean, in California, where I'm from, the stupid governor's like, like even they opened up the beaches and stuff, letting people go out, and then I heard, well, we're going to close the beaches for 4th of July weekend. People are having too much fun out there.
Not wearing can't have that.
And I laugh, like we're talking about, anti-establishment. I got people being threatened to, well, see you having any fun, you go on the beach, you're going to get arrested. It's like, it's just so crazy what the world is, turned into right now. But we need live performances.
It's a bummer, man.
We need live performances. That's what we need. So hopefully that won't.
Oh yeah. People are dying for it too, man. I mean, they really are. Yeah. Some areas are just, it's just sad what's going on, and and I don't know if they'll ever see live performances in some places. I mean, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but did the AIDS virus go away? No, it didn't. How long has that been around?
See, that's what I kind of laugh about.
Yeah. So, I think, I don't know, we could be stuck with it.
Well, that's what I kind of laugh about,
nobody
because
really knows. Everybody's just kind of speculating and guessing, and nobody really knows.
Yeah, none of us really knows. That's the thing. It's the huge unknown, the huge question mark. But I do think it's a big way of trying to control people. Because on one hand, I don't want to get too political, but on one hand, like you have people rioting out in the streets. That's perfectly all right. They're peaceful protesters, even though they're rioting. But that's all right. But you go outside your backyard. We're gonna give you a ticket or whatever. Okay.
I wonder if Dee would take issue with a militia using "we're not going to take it" to thwart the vandalizers and the people running around looting and burning stores down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, but I would tend to.
We'll have to write them first and ask and make sure we get permission to use it.
Yeah. I mean. I tend to say maybe not, but who knows?
Right. But another fun fact about Dee, he was actually his actual real name is Daniel.
Yeah.
Snider.
Yeah. I read that, and what's interesting is I was just because this was such a big comeback album, I wanted to kind of be prepared to talk about it. I went on and see if there was a Wikipedia for the album, thinking because it was such a popular album. I guess not yet. To be concluded, but. It is a great overall album. I mean, there's songs like one song comes to mind that I really loved on there. Well, obviously the title track. I think that just says it all. I mean, it sounds like he went in there and he put together this album that really was just done for the love of metal. It seems like he got that attitude back. But yeah, I am metal, or I'm going to go in there and do the best thing I can possibly. I dare say this is probably one of the best things he's done since Stay Hungry. I mean, because
absolutely, by far, yeah. Lives are a business. Tomorrow's no concern.
Yeah.
I Am the Hurricane, American Made, Rolled Over You. I mean, just track after track.
And I urge people to go even.
Music,
I urge people to go online and even check out on YouTube. Like you can find music videos that he did for this album. There's quite a few for the songs you just mentioned. And I think Hurricane, they did a video. Tomorrow Never Comes.
Tomorrow's no concern. Yeah, there's 3 or 4, I think, at least videos that he did for this.
And Dee Snider was definitely the star of those videos. But I will say this. I was saying, okay, he had such a great comeback with this album and got great reviews. We can't, a follow-up's got to be not too far behind. But I remember when he came off a tour last year for this, and he was like, well, I don't know when we're going to do the follow-up. I'm going to take a break and go do some other things. But come on, man, Dee, you got to do at least one more album because this one was just that good.
Right. This one left us hungry.
Yeah.
Right. Pun intended.
Yeah.
And another track worth mentioning on that album is "Dead Hearts Love Thy Enemy" featuring Alyssa White. Beautiful song, man. It shows the diversity and versatility that he has as a musician and a singer.
And I will say this.
Work with anyone,
Yeah, I will say this guy Jamie Josta from Hatebreed that produced it and wrote all the stuff with for Dee. I mean, he's obviously a fan because the stuff he wrote. I mean, it was made.
It fit him perfectly.
It was made for Dee. It's very much like Pete Townsend writes all those great Who songs, and Roger Daltrey's the voice.
Right, exactly.
And
there you go.
And this just is such a. And I will tell people the thing to look out for next from Dee Snider. I just seen this on Amazon today before I called you to do this, Joe, and he does have a live album that he recorded during the last tour, and I guess he's going to call it. It comes out July 31st. It's called Dee Snider for the Love of Metal Live, and I guess they have it in different formats. I guess you can get a live CD, and I guess you can either get a Blu-ray or a DVD of a performance. So that's something to be coming out July 31st. And besides the stuff that was recorded for the, off of the last album, they're going to have some of the hits you want to hear, like "We're Not Going to Take It," "I Want to Rock." So and I think he does like an AC/DC cover of "Highway to Hell," and so it's a couple things to look for in that package. So.
I'll be picking that up, absolutely.
And I was just gonna say I'll be picking that up myself because I'm such a big fan, and maybe you and me could talk about that specifically, that release when it comes out.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll be looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, and so I obviously you and I are such big Dee Snider fans, so it was fun to talk about this. Anything else you want to mention, Joe, before we wrap it up for tonight?
Yeah, another great track, man. We forgot to mention "I Want to Rock."
Oh yeah.
That's how I've been feeling, cooped up in here in the house.
Yeah. In fact, I got it. That song and that video, "I Want to Rock," that brings back so many memories because, like the first thing I ever saw was that video, and we're not going to take it, but especially "I Want to Rock." I love the beginning of that video where, this is just the intelligence of Dee Snider's brain, not just as a songwriter and a musician and a singer and a frontman, but he had the sound, he had the look, but even at the beginning of the video, I understand he directed the video, he was very involved in it, but they had that part where they're in the school class, the teacher comes up and says, what do you want to do with your life? I want to rock.
Yeah, of course.
And then,
that's memorable forever.
And then I love the part where he spins.
When we were young and boisterous, those were the times that stuck with you. Those kind of memories. Just as immediately you have those images in your mind. You know what I mean? And
I love the part where he spins around and he's like, "Twisted Sister," and then he becomes Twisted Sister. That is forever in my mind.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what a great artist really does. They leave you with those memories because you may think, like a lot of people may think, Twisted Sister had such a their career was not that huge, but they left us with some great music and even a little something like that sticks in your memory. They definitely made their mark,
Right. Absolutely.
And Dee Snider actually said that very much in his mind, Twisted Sister was to the East Coast what Quiet Riot was to the West Coast, in the sense that they had their diehard fans and their success kind of came and went, but they made their mark.
Oh yeah, they definitely did, and like I said, he's changed with the times.
Yeah.
He's survived, and he's bigger than ever in my book. When he put this record out, I was really blown away by it again. This is definitely one of my favorite more recent albums.
Oh yeah, it definitely made its mark, and I just got to see what comes next. There's got to be more to his musical legacy than just For the Love of Metal. But I will say, if that's the last thing he ever does musically, it again.
He went on a hell of a high note.
Yeah. And I got to ask, a few years before they retired for good, Twisted Sister a few years ago, they put out this like DVD, a documentary talking about their rise on the New York bar scene. I forget what it was called, but it was an interesting kind of overlook of their career. Did you get a chance to see that?
No, I didn't. No, I would love to see that.
I'll have to get the name of that for you, and I'll send it to you. But I'm sure you could still get it on Amazon or something like that if you really wanted to. Or and then Mike Portney, the drummer from like the Winery Dogs and Dream Theater. When Twisted Sister's drummer AJ Pero died, he actually was the final drummer in Twisted Sister. He was the one that finished up that farewell tour. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
And so
very cool.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say about Dee Snider, I think why he has got such a loyal fan base, besides his huge talent and legacy and all that, like we've been talking about, is he's such a humble guy. He's not just one of those guys that gets up and touts all his success and talks about how great he is. He could actually sit and talk to you, talk about, well, now that I look back on my career, I could have done this better. Maybe this is where I messed up, and maybe Twisted Sister's career would have been different if I wasn't such a egomaniac or whatever. He's got that humility.
Yeah, down to earth quality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like,
absolutely.
Like when you realize everything the guy, like after Widowmaker, when he really did literally lose it all, and I'd seen in an interview, like I think it was Behind the Music, and he was talking about, I lost it all. I only had maybe a penny in the bank at the time, but I eventually got it all back, and that's the kind of story everybody loves to hear.
Absolutely, yeah, the underdog story.
Yeah.
Yep. Came back.
Yeah, well,
stronger than ever.
Well, Joe, we're on episode 3 now, and I've really enjoyed doing this, and like
likewise.
Like I told you, I just sent off episode 2, so that hopefully be posted in the next few days. And once it gets posted, I'll let you know. And that of course is the one we did on Queensryche. And just to let people know, when we do episode 4, which is the next episode, Joe and I have decided we're going to talk about all things Ronnie James Dio, for the simple fact Joe and I are just huge Dio fans, and also because 2020 is the 10th anniversary of Ronnie James Dio's passing. So we wanted to give a little love to our hero Ronnie there. So we'll be doing that next week. So take care, Joe. And is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye tonight?
That's it, man. Just stay hungry and for the love of metal, man.
Okay, and like I said, he has that live album coming out July 31st, so we'll have to check that out. You take care, Joe, and I'll be in touch with you. Bye-bye.